Bright suns, and welcome back to a new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars with Maggie Lovett. As promised, this week I am going to be discussing Din's emotional journey throughout Season 2. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about the season finale. So, spoiler warning, today's episode is going to be covering all of Season 2, including the season finale. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm really impressed. And please get off the internet because you do not want this episode spoiled for you. I have genuinely never been happier. If you have listened to me on any of the live streams this season, I don't think I talked about it on this channel, but I've talked about it on some of the live streams and on Twitter and in conversations with friends. I did not want Luke Skywalker to be the Jedi to show up after Tython. However, I don't hate Luke. I don't have any emotional attachment to Luke, but I don't genuinely have any resentment towards Luke, which is weird because he's a fictional character and I don't get people who are resentful of Luke. But Luke is a character that I have grown up with. I read all of the Expanded Universe books as a kid. I know that journey. I've obviously watched the original trilogy a million times as a child. I crashed my bike pretending to be Luke on Dagobah. I like the character. He's not a top 5 character, but I didn't have any resentment towards him. And it's just been really strange to watch some of the discourse on Twitter this weekend and seeing how negatively people have reacted to a plot point that makes perfect sense in terms of where we are in the galaxy right now. And I think what people are forgetting and letting themselves be blinded by their own resentment maybe towards the franchise because things aren't going in a direction that they wanted it to go in is I think they're letting that color their opinions on Luke's return. But where we are in the storyline, it's 5 years past Return of the Jedi. We know that Luke is actively looking for Force-sensitive children. So of course he would be the Jedi that would respond to Grogu reaching out on Tython. That just makes sense. And Luke Skywalker is, for all intents and purposes, a main character in this franchise, and he will always be a main character in this franchise. Even as we shift away from the Skywalker saga, the Skywalkers are still a major player in the history of the Star Wars galaxy, for good and for bad. And so things are always going to connect to them, and I think that's something that we just have to maybe come to terms with. I was talking last night after the Geeky Waffle live stream. I was talking with Arzu and Candace, and I was saying that, after the Rise of Skywalker, I was burnt. I was really depressed. I was really disappointed with how things were going, and I let myself get caught up in all of that negativity because it feels good to be angry. Anger is just like a fire, and it's so fun to be angry, but it's ultimately not good for you. And I was talking to them about when I was part of the Postcards from the Galaxy project that Blastors worked on. And somewhere in about February, I kind of reprioritized myself and refocused on what Star Wars means to me and the messages of Star Wars. And it really helped me kind of look at what matters to me and not look at what doesn't matter to other people. And so that's something I've tried to really focus on in the wake of the Mandalorian season 2 finale because I genuinely loved it. And that moment when the X-Wing appears, I lost it. I sat bolt upright and just grabbed both sides of my face, and I just sat there in utter shock that they did it. And for all of my hesitations about bringing Luke into the storyline, it worked. And it worked so well. And it was everything. And I'm so happy about it. And Luke is an important part of the Star Wars story. And honestly, I think if they brought any other Jedi in, it wouldn't have packed the same punch. Because The Mandalorian really is this gateway for old fans and new fans to come together and love something new. And so I'm really excited about the potential for season 3 and where the story might go, because Din has to now reckon with where he is as a man, as a Mandalorian, as, a grieving father. And he has to deal with this whole Mandalorian arc that has slowly been unfurled throughout the season with the Darksaber and with Bo-Katan and, reforming Mandalore. We've heard these clues all throughout of it. So it's really exciting to see what we're going to get next year. But I'm fine if you want to call me a shill. I am very happy with where things are right now. And I just think that it's really important to reassess your own feelings and to focus on where you are with the story and not so much what's going on around you. Like, tune it out. Listen to some Jedi practices and just like tune out all of the noise around you. Just focus on what you love. And if you don't love it, take a break and come back, because you're going to find something that you do genuinely love. And I think that's what's important. And just don't be mean to people who are enjoying things. That's my tangent for today. But I do want to talk about Din Djarin, because this whole season has been such a gift. I keep saying that I think that Din Djarin's emotional arc has been one of the most satisfying storylines that Lucasfilm has created in the last decade. It's been handled so well, and I think a lot of that has to do with Pedro Pascal, who is just a tremendous performer. But I also think that John and Dave are really, really hyper-tuned into exploring this character. And in a lot of ways, it's helping the audience also explore Star Wars in a different way. But in terms of Din's journey this season, we see him start out not far off from where we left him in season 1, and then he encounters this guy who's wearing Mandalorian armor, and he has to realize he can't just shoot his way out of every conversation. He can actually work with people even though they go against what he's been taught, because he should not be wearing this Mandalorian armor because he's not a Mandalorian. And that's the first instance that he starts to realize that maybe that he can fudge things that he has been, trained and indoctrinated with. And then he meets Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan is Bo-Katan, and she's like, you're an occult dude. You have been taught by these people who are extremists, and just the way that Din wavers on this is the way at the end of that episode, and you see those first big chips in his armor, and then Boba Fett, and that I think the way that they paired Boba Fett and learning that his father was a foundling and his father was a Mandalorian, and that connection is a lot of the reason why I really like that Boba Fett came back to the story, because there's a connection there of, Boba Fett's father, Jango, was a foundling. He was Mandalorian. He had a son. And I think that information being delivered in the same episode that Din loses his son, he loses his foundling, was really profound. And I think that without that episode and the way that Din has to kind of yet again reckon with what it means to be a Mandalorian, I don't think we would have gotten last week's episode with Migs and Din taking his helmet off, because I really think that was he's reached this point where he's like, I can't keep holding on to the past if I want to have a future. I have to reprioritize everything that I've learned, and that's something that a lot of people who've been in cult situations, or that mindset that they have to reckon with who they are outside of the identity that has been put on them. And so there was a lot of great allusions just in the way that episode was delivered, because not only did Din have to take off his entire armor that he has built for himself, he also couldn't fight like a Mandalorian. He went to block a shot and the armor broke. And it's just really interesting to see that the Mandalorian way essentially hurt him. He felt pain and he had to change. And I think that's what's really interesting about Din as a character is that he has this potential to grow and evolve. He might be very set in his beliefs, but he's capable of being flexible. Even though when we first meet him in the very first episode of the series, he doesn't seem like a character that would be flexible at all. But in that first episode, he makes the conscious decision to save the child and go against what he vowed to do. And so that, this is a storyline that has been set up from the very first episode. And so to see where he ends and to see him take his helmet off to share this intimate moment with his son in the final moments before he hands him off to the Jedi in a room full of people is just beautiful. And I think it sets up for a lot of really interesting potential storyline, especially with Mandalore, because the Mandalorians historically have a very negative viewpoint towards foundlings. I mean, you have Almec, who is a skank, and we don't like him, and he is a liar. But, you have these characters, and even Bo-Katan is not hugely fond of foundlings. And this idea that Din is now, for all purposes, the heir to the Mandalorian throne, I think there's a lot of potential, really good storytelling with Din, who is a foundling and who is genuinely a very good person and respectful and understanding, that he could be a poster child for Mandalorians who have been separated from Mandalore and from other Mandalorians and could really be a figurehead in reuniting Mandalore for a greater good. So I'm really hoping that they explore that. I mean, I know that's probably going to get explored because we've seen from season 1 to season 2 that things that get mentioned always come back in the following season. So the biggest threads that were left untouched have been these offhanded comments about the state of Mandalore and the state of Mandalorians and how they've been divided, and the Darksaber and Bo-Katan. And so it's just, it seems like a natural progression. I think that's something that could be really fascinating. And I hate that we have to wait 52 weeks until we get it back, but I think there's going to be enough content between now and next year that we'll be satisfied, because we do have that Mandalorian book coming out sometime next year. We also have the Bad Batch and Fennec Shand, which... So if you haven't watched the post-credit scene, yes, the Book of Boba Fett. If you had told me at the start of 2020 that I would be overjoyed, excited, anxiously anticipating a Boba Fett spinoff series, I would have laughed at you. There's absolutely no way that I would be excited for Boba Fett. But Boba Fett is awesome. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way that they have presented the character. I think the fact that he saved Fennec Shand's life goes a long way into proving that he is a good person and clearly has a set of motivations that we as an audience aren't fully aware of yet. And so the idea of Fennec and Boba taking down Bib Fortuna and maybe starting their own bounty hunter guild or syndicate or something is just a magical thought to consider. And I'm really excited about that spinoff and where things are going to go. I'm also hoping that there is an opportunity in the Bad Batch, since we know that Fennec is going to be in it, there's an opportunity to explain if those two characters had a backstory together or something that would explain why he was like, yeah, I'm going to take the time to give her cybernetics and save her life. Because, I mean, maybe Boba's a good guy and he just wanted to lend a helping hand, but I feel like there's definitely more to that story. And I'm so glad that he helped Din, and he proved everyone on Twitter who thought he was going to be a turncoat or that Fennec was going to betray them. Super glad that that didn't happen. So Boba Fett's a good guy, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. That scene was just like, what? Yeah, there's so much good content that came out of Friday's episode, and I'm just overjoyed with where things are going for The Mandalorian and for Star Wars in general. I think that the current creatives involved have it handled, and I place all of my trust into them with the storytelling because it's just so good. And I'm really keen to see where Din goes. Is he going to wear his helmet less next season? Is he going to open up more to the people in his life? Will we get him using his own name and not just being called the Mando? There's a lot of questions. But I think things have been set up so well to really provide an interesting story. And having character-driven series is just fantastic. I think that a lot of this season where people were saying, oh, it was a filler episode. No, it was a character-driven episode. And oftentimes character-driven episodes are going to be quieter episodes. There's not going to be any big pew, 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 fights and stuff. It's going to be quieter. It's going to be focused more on introspection, and it's going to be focused more on learning. And Din has learned a lot this season, not just about himself, but at the galaxy as a whole. Din is very unaware of anything that's going on. He's a bit of a Kimmy Schmidt, and I think that's what makes his character so interesting, because we can grow with him, we can learn with him, and it makes him really easy to relate to. But I am so happy. And I can't stop grinning. I legitimately was speechless because of this episode. And I am a very talkative person. But for an hour, I couldn't speak. My brain was broken. And I could say all sorts of salty things about some of the discourse I've seen, but I'm trying to be good. But I think we just need to understand that people are all going to interact with media in different ways. And I think that no one is wrong for their opinions, but when you try to make people feel bad for being happy, that's when you do just need to take a breather. I've been there. I've been in fandoms before that were really toxic, and it's really easy to get caught up into that. And the Star Wars fandom is certainly not immune to that. But it's 2020. It's been a rough year. We are almost through it. Just let people be happy. Let people enjoy their lightsaber fights. Let them be excited for Luke. And I think that, for me, it's been really interesting because this season of The Mandalorian did a lot of things that I wasn't excited for. I did not want to see Ahsoka. I didn't want to see Luke Skywalker. I didn't want to see Boba Fett. And yet, every time one of those characters was brought into the story, I was ecstatic. I was ecstatic about Boba Fett. I was ecstatic about Luke. I was ecstatic about Ahsoka. And I think it's a matter of, I don't want that unless it's done well. And they really did it well. And it all makes sense. And I'm very excited. I'm very happy, and I'm very hopeful. And, Star Wars is all about hope. And for once in a very long time, I genuinely feel very, very happy. And I think that, 1 year post the rise of Skywalker, I'm in a much happier place. And I'm just really excited about the future. And that kind of brings me to the end of the episode. I do want to talk about some things that I bought, because that joy for where Star Wars is going right now has definitely manifested itself in me opening my wallet and buying lots of new things. So I'm going to talk about a few of those things right now. All right, so this is something that I bought, I think on May the 4th. So it's taken a while for it to get here, and it was so worth it. I am not what we call a green thumb. I am notorious at killing plants. So I bought myself this really cute little plastic fern critter. And he's just adorable. And he's very realistic looking, which I like. The plant looks really real. So he's going to go on my bookshelf right next to my Chia pet, which is currently Chia-less for the time being. And then I also bought one of these Collect 8, very whitewashed, but one of these Collect 8 blind box pens. And so I'm going to open that and see what I got. The options are very season 1. So IG-11, the Armorer, a Want It poster for the child, Bounty Hunter pen, a blurg, and then 2 child pens, and then 1 with Mando and the child. So kind of pretty sure I'm probably going to get the blurg because that's just like how my luck goes. So let's see what I got. Oh, I got Din and the child. Makes me sad now. But speaking of Din and the child, I forgot to mention last week that I had purchased some really cute enamel pens from Candace from the Geeky Waffle. She has an Etsy store, Once Upon a Dream Images, and I'll link that below. But she sent these 2 absolutely adorable enamel pens of Din and the child. So if you are looking for some new pens, definitely check out her store because they are adorable and they're going to be going up on my pin board of Star Wars pens. Really enjoying kind of fleshing out my collection. But that is all that I've bought. I think I have a Boba Fett shirt coming this week. I was really hoping it would get here in time for the season finale, but it didn't. I'm a little disappointed in you, Box Lunch. But you know, this has just been such a great experience, and it's hard to believe that I started this YouTube channel before The Mandalorian started airing, and we are all like already at the season finale, and now we have 52 weeks to wait until we get new content from The Mandalorian. But it's been a great experience, and you know, take Twitter for what it's worth. Choose your friend groups. Find people who make you feel good, and don't let people make you feel bad. Star Wars is what you make of it. Fandom is always going to be what you make of it. So just tune out negativity and focus on what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy where things are going, take a break. You might come back in a year and a half and be like, oh wait, I actually really like that. It's natural. We change, we evolve, we hear new, viewpoints and new opinions, and things change, and that's just part of being human. Be like Din. Learn to adapt, learn to listen and change and reassess who you are as a fan. So that is my message to you as we move into the new year. Choose to be less negative. Choose to accept that you're not going to enjoy everything, but you can enjoy the things you actually do enjoy. I know that I'm going to be enjoying Cobb Vanth and Boba Fett and Fennec Shand as we move into 2021. But honestly, thank you so much for subscribing this year. Will I be coming back next week in the new year? No. So I have one more video until I have to say I'll see you in the new year. But I hope everybody has a safe and wonderful holiday season, and that Santa Claus brings you all of the gifts of Star Wars, past and present, and that everyone just has a really wonderful holiday season and makes of it what they can with how things are in 2020. But with that, may the Force be with you.